Coming up on 5 Minute News. US Justice Department sues Texas over redistricting maps. Republican Devin Nunes to leave Congress to head Trump's social media business. And scientist behind UK vaccine warns next pandemic could be much worse. It's Tuesday, December 7. I'm Anthony Davis. The US Justice Department sued Texas on Monday over its new redistricting maps, saying the plans discriminate against minority voters, particularly Latinos, who have fueled the state's population boom. The lawsuit claims the Republican-controlled state violated part of the Voting Rights Act in drawing new district boundaries for its congressional delegation and state legislature. It's the Biden Justice Department's first legal action challenging a state's maps since states began redrawing their maps this year to account for population changes. The lawsuit notes that most of Texas's population growth over the past decade came from Black, Latino, and Asian people, but alleges that the new maps drawn by state Republicans dilute these communities' votes by denying them opportunities to choose their representatives. It says the maps pack Black and especially Latino communities into bizarre-shaped districts. One in the Dallas area is described as seahorse-shaped, while preserving seats for white Republicans. This is not the first time that Texas has acted to minimize the voting rights of its minority citizens, Associate Attorney General Vanita Gupta said during a news conference with Attorney General Merrick Garland. Decade after decade, courts have found that Texas has enacted redistricting plans that deliberately dilute the voting strength of Latino and Black voters and that violate the Voting Rights Act. The litigation comes as Republicans and Democrats jockey for an edge in the once-a-decade redistricting process, which has already reached new levels of gerrymandering. Critics say that Republicans are already prepared to rig the 2022 midterm elections and potentially the 2024 presidential election in their favor by positioning state legislatures and boundary lines and spreading political misinformation in order to cheat their way to the ballot box. California Republican Representative Devin Nunes, who was one of former President Donald Trump's most ardent loyalists in Congress, is leaving the House at the end of this year to join Donald Trump's fledgling media company. A statement on Monday from the Trump Media and Technology Group said Nunes would serve as Chief Executive Officer beginning January 2022. The company is preparing to launch a social media platform intended to rival competitors, including Twitter, which blocked Trump's account in January in an attempt to stem the rise of fascism. In June, Facebook suspended Trump's accounts for 2 years, following a finding that he stoked violence ahead of the January 6 insurrection. Devin understands that we must stop the liberal media and big tech from destroying the freedoms that make America great, Donald Trump said in a statement. Nunes' decision comes at a time when his political future in California appeared in possible jeopardy. Realignment of congressional districts suggested he would face a challenging re-election in the 2022 midterms. Those maps will not be finalized until later this month. Nunes said the time has come to reopen the internet and allow for the free flow of ideas and expression without censorship. Nunes, along with Trump and his associates, have successfully blurred the line between free speech and hate speech, normalizing language that had previously been considered only the preserve of far-right and fascist organizations. Trump's media company and Digital World acquisition announced over the weekend they had agreements for $1 billion in capital from institutional investors. The Securities and Exchange Commission and the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority are already investigating the deal. One of the scientists behind the British Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine is warning that the next pandemic may be more contagious and more lethal unless more money is devoted to research and preparations to fight emerging viral threats. In a speech on Monday, Professor Sarah Gilbert said the scientific advances made in fighting deadly viruses must not be lost because of the cost of fighting the current pandemic. This will not be the last time a virus threatens our lives and our livelihoods, Gilbert said. The truth is, the next one could be worse. It could be more contagious, or more lethal, or both. Gilbert spoke on Monday night when she delivered this year's Richard Dimbleby Lecture, named after the late broadcaster who was the BBC's first war correspondent and a pioneer of television news in Britain. Gilbert urged governments to redouble their commitment to scientific research and pandemic preparedness, even after the threat of COVID-19 wanes. We cannot allow a situation where we have gone through all we have gone through and then find that the enormous economic losses we have sustained mean there is still no funding for pandemic preparedness, she said. The advances we have made and the knowledge we have gained must not be lost. Meanwhile, US pharmaceutical companies are earning more than 3 times in profits from COVID vaccines in 1 year than it would actually cost to vaccinate the entire world's population of 7.8 billion people. You can subscribe to 5-Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5-Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5-Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.